To get back her A-list star status, this woman didn't hesitate to fake a pregnancy to climb the social ladder, dating the youngest son of a tycoon family. She and that scumbag boyfriend secretly got engaged, and she became his fiancé. As for this guy, he is exactly like the name bad boy, hanging around the high society all year, being both talentless and not favored by his father. His daily life only consists of booze and beautiful girls. He is a real playboy. So, as soon as news of their engagement leaked, it quickly blew up in the entertainment world. In the blink of an eye, the news took over every search ranking. Thanks to this event, Pi successfully went from a nobody actress back to the peak of fame. Hearing the insults from the outside, with rumors that she wanted to cling to a powerful family and use her boyfriend's money to get famous, Pi wasn't angry at all. Instead, she calmly went to do charity work, helping children in difficult situations. The donations reached millions of dollars. Immediately, the malicious rumors were silenced, and she successfully built an image of a kind-hearted star. But celebrities always have drama. Seeing that Pi's career was taking off and she was about to marry into a wealthy family, May was extremely jealous. To surpass Pi's popularity, she didn't hesitate to accept the pursuit of a business mogul named Pao, a man old enough to be her father. Not only that, she told the media her wedding would be held on the same day as her best friend Pi's. But that wasn't enough. May also hired someone to follow Pi's scumbag boyfriend. And just as expected, he was caught partying at a bar again. The next day, news of a suspected split between Pi and her rich boyfriend hit the front pages of entertainment news. To save face, they both decided to hold a press conference. Facing sharp questions from reporters, the terrible boyfriend still calmly lied without blinking an eye. He skillfully covered up the bar incident, explaining he only went there to discuss company business. Right after that, he quickly changed the subject, grabbed Pi's hand in front of everyone and sincerely claimed he had found the woman he wanted to protect for life, and regardless of the past, he would be faithful to her from now on. This vow touched everyone present and also helped him successfully clean up his image. Pi couldn't hide her glowing happiness either. However, by evening she was still uneasy. While her boyfriend was fast asleep, she secretly checked his phone and sent the strange numbers to her manager to investigate. The next day the results were in. It turned out the person behind the news leak was May. Her goal was clear. She wanted Pi to suffer from bad rumors. But Pi had been in this industry for 20 years. She was no pushover. She originally planned to deal with May after the wedding, but then the wedding venue she booked was snatched by May through underhanded tricks. At this moment, Pi's eyes turned sharp. She decided to settle all old and new scores with May at once. In the afternoon, Pi met May. As soon as they met, the two started a silent competition. May didn't hesitate to mock Pi, saying she was only dating a useless rich boy who relied on his family for money, while her own husband was a self-made success. Pi stayed calm and replied confidently that even if May found an old, ugly man to be her treasure just to beat her, or even if she used connections to steal the wedding venue or hire the makeup artist, the one thing she couldn't steal was Pi's title as the rating queen. This hit May's weak spot, making her so angry she lost her composure and tried to lash out. But just then, a passerby recognized them and ran over to ask for a photo. May had to swallow her anger, but she wouldn't give up easily. The battle for fame officially began here. As a top star in the entertainment industry, with a perfect body and looks, she only had eyes for a talentless playboy who loved hanging out in bars. To be accepted by the rich parents of her scumbag boyfriend, Pi put in a lot of effort and didn't hesitate to fake a pregnancy to get her ticket into the wealthy family. Everything went exactly as she planned. The boyfriend brought the news home, making his father, the group chairman, very happy. His eldest son had been married for a long time without a child, and now his youngest son had finally taken a step forward, and with the famous star Pi. He immediately bought a beachfront villa as a gift for his unofficial daughter-in-law and the grandchild. But the mother had a huge prejudice against Pi. She thought that even though Pi was a celebrity, she came from a poor background and only had a high school education. If her son married her, it would definitely shame the whole family. However, the father argued back, telling her not to look down on Pi. He reminded her that the company's products were selling well mostly because Pi was the spokesperson. If she didn't bring in profits, how could the mother afford diamond necklaces? His words silenced the mother. She had nothing left to say. In the afternoon, the boyfriend told Pi about this, saying his father was very supportive and agreed to the marriage. Because of this, he finally had a chance to participate in company business and might even replace his brother's position. He also said his mother might be a bit old-fashioned and still had some prejudice, but told Pi not to worry. As long as she gave birth to a grandson, his mother wouldn't be able to say anything anymore. Hearing this, Pi pretended to be scared, worrying she wouldn't be liked by her mother-in-law, but because she wanted to be with him, she would face it bravely. Right after hanging up, Pi went back to her true self and complained to her team that playing the role of a good wife and mother didn't feel right at all. What annoyed her was that the mother-in-law looked down on her without looking at what her son was actually like. Without the reputation and status of a star backing him, how could he have successfully cleaned up his image? Her manager warned her not to be too harsh with the mother-in-law, or things wouldn't be easy in the future. But Pai didn't care. She was proud that she didn't rely on anyone, having worked her way up in the industry step by step to get where she is today. The fact that the mother-in-law dared to speak up without knowing anything made her furious. She was determined to find a chance to meet her and clear things up. Meanwhile, May had become even more resentful since the last time Pai annoyed her. Every day, she looked for ways to sabotage Pai, hoping to ruin her rival's reputation. That day, when she went to work, she heard a commotion downstairs. It turned out to be a new actress arriving to sign a contract. After asking her assistant, she found out this actress named Bo had failed to make it in Hollywood and was set up by her mother to date rich guys. That's how she got the funding to join this company. May thought to herself that she didn't expect someone who looked so innocent to be someone who would do anything for fame. Maybe she could use this girl. Thinking about it, she went to find her fiancé to discuss it. She was having a headache trying to find a good way to deal with Pai, and now wasn't this a godsend opportunity? A great idea immediately popped into her head to steal all the spotlight at Pai's wedding. And that girl Bo, with her messy personal life, was the key to making the plan work. A nobody actress purposely wore revealing clothes at an A-list star's wedding, screaming loudly to grab the media's attention. Her mother stood nearby, casually taking photos. The bride, Pai, was totally clueless about this sudden incident. She couldn't believe it was all a scheme by her archenemy, May, to ruin the wedding and steal her spotlight. This plan perfectly matched the fame-hungry desires of Bo and her mother. So, even without an invitation, the mother and daughter shamelessly crashed the wedding. Waiting for the moment everyone focused on Pai throwing the bouquet, Bo sat on the ground trying to look as sexy as possible. Her mouth said don't take pictures, but her eyes were glancing right at the camera lens. Meanwhile, the mother waited until she was sure everything was recorded before quickly switching to a panicked face, pretending to run up and stop everyone, screaming for the media to stop filming her daughter, but she had absolutely no intention of leaving. With the deep acting of the mother and daughter, everyone's attention clearly shifted from Pai to them. Reporters swarmed after the pair. At this moment, Pai was boiling with rage. As for Bo and her mother, they went home, overjoyed and praising each other's acting. Both were looking forward to May with her tricks, making the journalists write sensational articles to help Bo hit the front pages tomorrow. The next day came quickly, and everything happened exactly as the mother and daughter expected. Bo became the center of attention of star Pai's wedding, suddenly getting noticed on TV after being a nobody actress. The host asked sharp questions, suspecting the mother and daughter had staged everything for fame. Bo's mother seriously explained that no mother in the world would let her daughter fall into such a scandalous situation just for fame, though no one knew if her face was burning when she said that. But like mother like daughter, Bo was just as shameless. She stayed at home, looking at photos of Pai's husband, that scumbag guy, with eyes full of admiration. What she wanted to steal wasn't just Pai's fame. As for Pai, after the wedding, she finally entered the wealthy family. Knowing that her father-in-law valued the baby in her womb very much, she didn't forget to fake morning sickness during dinner to get the head of the family's attention. But the mother-in-law still hadn't changed her attitude. She mocked Pai for being so dramatic at only 2 months, wondering if it was real or fake. Before Pai could speak, the father-in-law interrupted, scolding his wife that their daughter-in-law was pregnant, and if she couldn't give a blessing, she should stop making sarcastic comments, saying that if she didn't speak, nobody would think she was mute. Being rebuked by her husband, the mother-in-law got even angrier, skipped the meal and walked straight out. Seeing this, Pai felt triumphant, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch upward. After dinner, the young couple went to work. The boyfriend comforted Pai, saying his mother just hadn't accepted the premarital pregnancy yet, and believed that after living together for a while, she would understand Pai's good personality. Pai acted understanding, determined to play the role of a good wife and daughter-in-law to the end. While seeing her husband off, she was about to leave when she saw her mother-in-law walking toward her. Hearing the insults from her, Pai didn't hold back anymore and fired back boldly that the woman should just mind her own business, and it didn't matter if she didn't like the baby. It seemed that in this house, her father-in-law was still the one with the most power, while the mother only looked for trouble for no reason. The mother-in-law was so angry she laughed, saying Pai had shown her true face and after all still carried the blood of a poor person. If it weren't for the pregnancy, stepping into this wealthy family would just be a pipe dream. Looking at Pai's frozen face, she walked away smugly. Pai was angry, but thinking carefully, the woman's words weren't wrong. It was true that because of the pregnancy, she was accepted by the father-in-law. But the problem was, she was only faking the pregnancy. This matter would be exposed sooner or later. It seemed Pai had to find a way to actually get pregnant. So she got in the car, went home and told her plan to her manager. To marry into a wealthy family, this woman lied about being pregnant. But the prejudice and mockery from her mother-in-law made her realize the importance of the baby in her womb. She knew that everything going smoothly was thanks to this pregnancy. Now she had to turn the lie into the truth. And the first thing to do was to set up a story about losing the baby to hide the fake pregnancy logically. Very quickly after that, Pi prepared everything carefully. She told her assistant to use the excuse that she wasn't feeling well to call her husband home. This time, as soon as Put saw Pi lying on the bed, before he could even ask how she was, she burst into tears, perfectly performing an Oscar-worthy scene. Through her sobs, Pi said that due to the heavy pressure lately, she couldn't keep the baby. Right after that, her emotions went out of control, constantly blaming herself, hitting herself, and then hugging Put while apologizing non-stop, making him completely confused. She said the father-in-law would definitely be heartbroken if he knew. Unexpectedly, the husband quickly stopped her and said this matter must be hidden from the whole family. If the father knew, the consequences would be unimaginable. When Put left the room, he told Pi's manager that he would lie to the family, using the excuse that Pi had severe morning sickness so she wouldn't come home for a while, until she got pregnant again. After her husband left, Pi immediately changed from her sad state, drinking wine with her team, celebrating that the fake pregnancy matter had temporarily ended. Now, she could not only take on movies to make a comeback, but also pulled her husband onto her side. She asked her manager to write an article about the new movie to disappoint those who wanted to watch her fail. On the other hand, Put was called to the company by his father, who asked why Pi was taking on a movie while pregnant. He quickly explained it was to deceive the public and hide the premarital pregnancy, and he had told the director to take good care of Pi. But the father looked serious, saying it was best not to let anything happen to his unborn grandchild. Otherwise, Put wouldn't even be able to keep his position as director. In the evening, Pi received a date invitation from her husband. She happily let the whole team off early. But the assistant reminded her to be careful because she had just faked a miscarriage, so she absolutely could not get close to avoid being caught. Pi nodded to show she understood. Sure enough, at night, thinking of his father's threat, Put intended to quickly have a real baby with Pi. But she rejected him with the reason that her body needed time to recover. The husband had no choice but to give up. The next day, May, who always opposed Pi, saw the news of Pi taking on a new movie, but her expression was strangely calm, completely different from her usual hot temper. Faced with the assistant's confused look, May just curled her lips into a mysterious smile, signaling to just stay quiet and watch the drama. With her level of understanding of Pi, May quickly guessed the key point. To make a playboy like him stay well behaved, it must be related to the baby. Now that that bond was gone, May gave a cold smile. She really wanted to see how much longer that marriage could last. It turns out, the scheming May arranged for Bo to go to Put's gym and wait. Sure enough, not long after, she accidentally ran into him. Bo gave a sweet smile to say hello, while Put stared at her hot body and young face, his eyes starting to wander. He had no idea he was stepping right into someone else's trap. Meanwhile, the mother, wanting her daughter to land a rich catch, brought her to the gym to wait for the target. As soon as she saw Put, she went up to say hello, but only said a few words before leaving. To get his attention, the mother and daughter signaled each other. Bo timed it perfectly. While the trainer was doing leg kicks, she pretended to be hit on the arm and sat on the floor, screaming in pain. The owner of the gym, which was Put, quickly heard the noise and ran over, taking her to the hospital. It was actually nothing. After checking her, the doctor cleared her to go home. But she insisted her arm had internal injuries, and there might be long-term side effects. Bo made a scene, and finally she got to stay in the hospital for observation. However, the security footage the staff brought showed clearly that Bo was faking it. Seeing this, Put couldn't help but laugh. While thinking about how to handle it, his father called. His brother had already picked 3 spokespeople for the new product. If he didn't have a candidate yet, the project manager position would go to his brother. Not wanting his brother to steal the spotlight, he quickly replied that he found someone and would discuss the details when he got back. After reassuring his father, Put went back to the hospital room. Looking at Bo, he felt she wasn't a bad choice and invited her to be the spokesperson. The mother and daughter couldn't believe their luck, and nodded yes without hesitation. When Pi heard the news, her manager worriedly asked what to do, but Pi was very calm, saying that kind of person wasn't even worth being her rival. Then she continued playing with the kids, keeping up her angel image. However, after the news spread online, Bo's young and pretty look helped the company's products sell better. Both being spokespeople for the same product quickly became a hot topic. The public started comparing them, which made Pi lose her cool a bit. With the press conference coming up, Pi prepared very carefully. Everything from her clothes to her makeup was chosen with care. She even spent a lot of money to hire all the top makeup artists, determined not to have any mistakes that day. On the other side, Bo's mother kept complaining that Pi had booked all the makeup artists, not knowing how her daughter would manage. But Bo was very calm, as if she had planned it all along. She confidently said her biggest advantage was her youth and looks. According to her, not having a makeup artist was actually better, because she didn't need layers of fancy makeup. With just a young, vibrant face, she believed she could stand up to Pi, who was used to relying on her past fame. At the press conference, Pi looked gorgeous. Her sophisticated makeup and evening gown kept her in top form, earning praise from fans and reporters. The atmosphere was very lively, but quickly, her spotlight was stolen by Bo, who wore light makeup but looked full of life. She walked boldly next to Pi, listening to the crowd's cheers get louder and even flirting with Put. Pi could barely keep her face straight, but seeing May, who came just to enjoy the drama in the crowd, she still had to force a smile to finish the event. A top star was losing her resources to a nobody over and over again, not only using a revealing outfit to ruin her wedding, but also faking a fall to get close to her husband and becoming a spokesperson for the same product. Now she was stealing all the attention at the press conference and flirting with her husband. Pi saw it all but couldn't snap right there. She could only force a smile. Back home, she didn't mention the flirting between her husband and Bo, trying to be the perfect wife. It was just because she didn't have the energy to care about that right now. She understood that in this situation, getting pregnant was the only way to turn the tables. The next day with her team, she quietly went to the hospital. She decided to use medical help to get pregnant faster and more surely. When she got her checkup, the doctor's words were like a cold bucket of water over her. The doctor regretfully told Pi that there were abnormalities in her body, and she could only get pregnant after surgery to remove them. However, recovery would take at least a year. In the elevator, the three discussed their plan, wondering how to have the surgery without the family finding out. Finally, the assistant suggested going abroad for a quiet surgery, but Pi was worried about her husband's cheating nature. If she wasn't around, he would go wild. She hesitated and couldn't decide. When they got out of the elevator, they ran into Pi's archenemy, May. May mocked Pi, asking if she was here for fertility issues like the rumors said, unlike her, who was already pregnant and about to give the family a grandchild. Then, without letting Pi talk back, May loudly told everyone to make way for a pregnant woman. Pi was furious. Back home, she immediately decided to get the surgery. She had to get pregnant fast. To keep an eye on her husband while she was away, she asked her sister, Pam, to join her father-in-law's company as an intern to report back. Then, she felt safe enough to use a movie shoot as an excuse to go abroad. Sure enough, without Pi watching, Put started getting restless. He and Bo kept flirting even during meetings, as if they wanted to write their feelings on their faces. After the meeting, Bo didn't miss the chance to thank Put for the spokesperson job. She suggested going to dinner tonight. Her intention was obvious. Just as Put was about to agree, Pi called, ruining their plan. Seeing Bo next to her husband, she wasn't surprised, only saying he was working hard to go ahead and work, and she'd call back tonight. When he asked for a specific time, she dodged the question. This was her way of stopping her husband from going out. But once a man is tempted, how can he stay quietly in a cage? Bo once used this exact example when talking to her mother. She believed men aren't actually afraid of their wives. They just haven't met something tempting enough yet. In their eyes, the bright flowers outside are always more alluring, especially for a guy with strong instincts like him. Once he's tired of looking at Pi, he'll eventually find a way to break free and run to her. Bo was very certain, telling her mother to just wait patiently, because that ending was bound to happen sooner or later. The mother-in-law, who always looked down on her celebrity daughter-in-law's poor background, completely changed her usual bossy attitude. During a video call, she spoke softly and kindly told Pi to take care of her health while filming abroad. She even said she would tell her son to stay at home for a few days and personally offered to help supervise him. Pi looked at her fake behavior but still smiled and nodded in thanks. When she hung up the phone, the assistant reminded Pi that something was off. However, Pi had already seen through her tricks. Surely Put had convinced the mother-in-law to cover for him while he went out to party. Sure enough, at home, Put was acting grateful to his mother for helping him hide the truth. Just as he was about to head out to party, his father stopped him and sternly reminded him that since he was married, he shouldn't keep messing around outside. His mother immediately stood up for him, saying that a son needs his own space. Besides, Pi wasn't home, so there was nothing wrong with him relaxing a bit. Hearing that, the father got angry and fired back, asking if she would happily accept it if he went out and cheated while she wasn't home. Hit where it hurt, the mother was immediately silenced. The father turned to his son and flatly ordered him that he must not stay out overnight, let alone get involved with other women. The family's reputation is what matters most, especially since Pi just posted a photo showing off a happy family. The mother and son looked at each other in confusion. It turned out that even though Pi was abroad and couldn't come back, she purposely posted a screenshot of their video call to make sure her husband behaved. She knew that for the sake of the family's honor, her father-in-law would definitely watch Put for her. On this side, Bo waited for Put at home for a long time without seeing any movement. Her mother saw Pai's post about her happy family and mocked her, saying it was clear Bo had no place in that man's heart. Unexpectedly, Bo was strangely calm. She smiled faintly and said slowly that the more someone tries to show off, the more it proves the marriage has problems. Truly happy couples never need to show off to prove their happiness. Thinking that, Bo even felt pity for Pai. Bo knew very well that what she needed wasn't to rush, but just the right timing. And then the very next day she made her move. At the company, Put got a text from Bo with a photo of her injured leg. While he was staring at her fair thighs, the person in the photo called, saying she sent it to the wrong person and meant to send it to her doctor. Then, using her mother's name, she asked if he was free tonight because she wanted to thank him for the spokesperson job. Put immediately understood her intention. Right as he was about to agree, his father called. It turned out that to make sure he didn't have any bad intentions, Pai had asked her sister Pam to go to the company, pretending to do paperwork but actually to spy on him. But Put's mind had already wandered to Bo long ago. To escape quickly, he looked at the innocent Pam and had an idea. At lunch, he took the initiative to invite Pam to eat and got her to drink. After a few drinks, Pam was dizzy but still insisted on going back to the company to finish the documents. To keep the plan from falling apart, Put insisted on taking her home, saying he would go back to finish the remaining work. Hearing that, Pam finally felt at ease. Then Put took Pam down to the garage. Unexpectedly, Pam couldn't stand straight and fell into his arms. The atmosphere immediately became a bit intimate. Pam was embarrassed and forgot the spy mission her sister gave her, quickly scurrying home. Seeing the tail leave, Put was finally free to do whatever he wanted in his glamorous world. He immediately called Bo and asked for a date. To escape his wife's supervision, the man had planned to get the innocent sister drunk. When he finished dealing with the tail, he quickly contacted his flirtatious target. At this time, Bo was filming on set. Receiving Put's date invitation, she immediately agreed happily. Her mother nearby scolded her, saying there were 4 scenes left, and finishing would be midnight, so don't think about skipping and upsetting the director. Bo winked at her mother, promising that according to her mother's plan, she could definitely finish filming early. So the mother and daughter started acting again. The mother ran to the water dispenser to get 2 cups of hot water, then added cold water so it wouldn't burn too much, and asked a staff member to bring it to her daughter. Everything was ready. She purposely bumped into the staff member, spilling water on Bo. The mother immediately heard the noise and ran over, scolding the staff member, then looked worriedly at her daughter's red arm, wanting to take her to the hospital. But Bo acted very professional, saying she could keep filming. Unexpectedly, after 2 steps, she grabbed her arm and cried out. The director couldn't stand the mother and daughter's fake behavior and decided to stop filming so they could quickly go to the hospital. Just like that, they successfully escaped. Bo even purposely went to the hospital so that when she returned to the set with the injury later, she would build an image of a professional and dedicated actress. After everything was done, she went early to the meeting spot with Put to wait. As a result, after just a few words, they both left the nightclub together. Put took Bo to a private apartment. Looking at her sexy body, he no longer acted formal like he did outside, showing his intentions without hiding, and reached out his handsy hand to caress her. Bo didn't avoid it at all and took the initiative to turn off the light. The dim light made the atmosphere even more intimate. Both of them moved closer together in sync. Right at this time, Pai, who was lying in the hospital bed, suddenly woke up. She felt something was wrong in her heart. She planned to call her husband, but the assistant advised that she just finished surgery and should rest well. Besides, her face was so pale. What if he found out? To keep her husband from finding unusual signs on her body, Pai asked the assistant to bring the makeup back. After fixing herself up, she immediately video called him. The man quickly answered, using the excuse that he was busy with company work, and asked what was up. Pai pretended to care, skillfully probing, reminding him that he usually doesn't go to work until 9, yet it wasn't even 7 in Thailand and he was already awake. Feeling a bit panicked inside, the guy immediately improvised, making an excuse that he was discussing a deal with a foreign client and had to adjust to their time zone, then turned and questioned her back. Acting unhappy with her suspicion, pushed into a passive spot, Pai quickly changed her tone, acting cute and explaining that she just missed him, so she asked a few things. After that, she wished him a good morning and took the initiative to hang up. Only when the screen turned off did Put smirk, secretly sighing in relief because he thought he had escaped danger. On this side, the assistant worriedly reminded Pai to watch her injury, saying all the checks were done and she could rest easy. But Pai didn't let go of her suspicion because of that. On the contrary, her husband waking up unusually early made her certain he was hiding something. Without further hesitation, Pai asked the assistant to ask the doctor how much longer she needed before she could be discharged. Seeing the assistant's worried face, Pai's eyes became determined. She just said a short sentence that she had to quickly return to Thailand. The woman who put in all her effort finally got the last step of confirmation with the target. Early the next morning, Beau woke up. To prevent Put from turning his back on her after getting what he wanted, she quickly took her phone out and took many photos, creating all kinds of angles and poses, carefully saving them as evidence in her hand. After that, she went home arrogantly. Seeing her mother arrive, she immediately opened the photo album to show the results of yesterday's work. Both began to calculate how to use Put to pave the way for them. Beau even made an annoying face, teasing that this time she not only stole the camera and Pie's fame, but now she even stole her man, wondering what to steal next. The mother happily exclaimed that the goal, of course, was to take the position of the #1 lead actress in the industry from her. The mother and daughter felt the future was very bright. They really have no shame. At the same time, at the hospital abroad, because she wanted her injury to heal quickly, Pie hurriedly got out of bed to practice walking. The assistant advised her not to rush, as overexerting would only make the situation worse. But Pie couldn't hide her unease. She said Beau was using the burn to insist on filming, her fame was growing, and Put always made her feel uneasy. The assistant worriedly asked if she was tired because Pie hadn't had a full night's sleep since the surgery. Pie's face darkened. How could she not be tired? Even putting family matters aside, everyone in the entertainment industry is lurking and calculating every step. She couldn't sit still and wait to be pushed into a weak position. Seeing the assistant surprised that she couldn't even walk by herself yet, Pie quickly regained her usual sharp look and coldly said that if she couldn't stand straight, she could still be discharged. So she used her father-in-law's company's name to attend a charity event for poor children. Using a sprained ankle as an excuse to be in a wheelchair, Pie easily fooled everyone. Thanks to this calculated appearance, her father-in-law's company products sold like crazy once again. This time, since it directly hit his wallet, the father-in-law strictly warned Put that he must never cheat on his daughter-in-law. But Put had already tasted that new excitement, so there was no way he would listen to the warnings. As soon as he got back to the office, a new scheme started forming in his head. Didn't he already arrange for his sister-in-law to be his tail? This time he wanted to use that exact chance to go out and play legally without any worries at all. So he called Pam into the office and told her to look over some company documents. Knowing Pam was naive and easy to trick, he used the excuse that he hadn't eaten anything all morning to take her to a restaurant, explaining they could change their work environment at the same time. But before long, he told Pam he had a meeting and would come back to pick her up afterward. After saying that, he went out and immediately asked Beau out for coffee. She didn't hesitate either, again using her injury as an excuse to go to the hospital. As soon as they got to the hotel, they jumped right into their fun, ignoring Pam, who had the flu from drinking and was left all alone. Not until late afternoon did he go back to the restaurant. Sure enough, Pam was still waiting there. He pretended to feel bad and apologized, saying the meeting took longer than expected. Surprisingly, Pam didn't blame him at all and even told him he didn't need to pick her up. She could get back to the office on her own. But he immediately disagreed, acting caring, saying Pie had put Pam in his care, so of course he had to look after her. While cleaning up the documents, he accidentally touched her hand and noticed something was wrong. Seeing Pam's body was burning up, he asked and found out she had a fever from drinking the day before and sitting in air conditioning all day. Put felt a bit guilty, and with that feeling rising, he took her to the hospital. However, right when they got there, another dark plan secretly formed in his mind. It wasn't enough for him to cheat outside. Now he was reaching for his sister-in-law too. Just yesterday, Put had taken Pam to the hospital for a checkup. She told him to go home, saying she was used to being alone and could take care of herself. But based on his sharp Playboy experience, Put quickly noticed the loneliness in her words. He knew girls like that definitely crave attention deep down. So he flat out canceled his scheduled meeting and waited for Pam to finish her checkup. When Pam walked out of the clinic, she was shocked to see he was still there. He acted super caring, saying he wasn't comfortable leaving her alone in the hospital. He insisted on going with her to get medicine and then drove her home. Meanwhile, Pie was recovering abroad but never stopped her power struggle with her archenemy May. She just finished doing charity and promoting her angel image, but right after, May's team spread rumors everywhere, making the public turn against her. Beau wasn't sitting idle either. To steal Pie's fame, she took the initiative to help a lost child find their family. This move successfully grabbed the media's attention. Then, by talking about her miserable childhood to play the victim card, she successfully took her name to a new level. Pie watched the local news praising Beau and read the interview where Beau called herself an angel, and it drove her crazy. How dare she openly challenge her? She couldn't stand it another second and decided to fly back home immediately to teach a lesson to this petty person who didn't know her place. While everyone was busy fighting each other, Put focused all his attention on Pam. He went to her house to check if her flu was getting any better. While talking, he reached out and touched Pam's cheek to check her temperature. Just that one small move made her heart race. Even though she told him she took medicine and was fine, he still insisted she rest well while he went to the supermarket to buy some food. Pam couldn't say no, so she went back to her room, sitting on the bed. She touched her cheek where he just touched, and his caring words kept ringing in her ears. She couldn't help but smile. But naive Pam had no idea these were just his usual tricks. Soon after, Pam took fever medicine and fell asleep. Put also came back with the food. He went to the bathroom to wet a washcloth, getting ready to take care of Pam. But when he saw her sleeping peacefully and her fair skin, his heart started racing. He threw the washcloth down and carefully tested the waters. Seeing Pam still asleep, he boldly leaned down to kiss her. Pam was woken up by the strange sensation. She panicked and pushed him away, asking what he was doing. Caught in the act, he didn't hide his intentions anymore, saying he just realized how beautiful she was, which made him lose control of himself. Pam was already falling for him, and hearing his sweet talk, she slowly lost herself, completely forgetting about her sister Pi. At the same time, Pi had landed. Seeing her team there to pick her up but not seeing her sister Pam anywhere, she couldn't help but wonder. On the way back she called Pam but no one answered. She had no idea that the person she trusted most had betrayed her, and was sleeping with her husband. At this moment, Pam looked calm while cleaning up the messy bed. But when she picked up the tie her brother-in-law left behind, her emotions overflowed. She remembered what he said an hour ago, telling her not to panic and to wait for him to handle things with Pi before they discussed the two of them. Seeing that she wanted to confess, he quickly comforted her, telling her not to be afraid and not to say anything to Pi because he would handle it. Then he told Pam that if Pi asked, just say she was at a meeting at the mall. They had to keep their stories straight. Since things had gone this far, Pam had no choice but to nod in agreement. Pulled back to reality, she couldn't hold it back anymore and burst into tears. She hated her own foolishness and felt extremely guilty toward her sister. While she was suffering, she saw Pi calling. Not wanting to get caught, she quickly wiped her tears and tried to stay calm. Pi thanked Pam for helping her watch Put so she could have peace of mind. But hearing her sister's thanks, Pam felt tortured inside. She blamed herself for betraying her sister's trust and couldn't face her, so she quickly hung up. Now, only regret remained. She just wished she could turn back time. On the other side, Put rushed home. His mother kept nagging, blaming Pi for coming back early and getting her caught in a lie by his father. In her frustration, she gritted her teeth and said Pi purposely made her lose face. Right after that, she turned to her son and told him to keep his wife on a short leash and not let people think he was whipped. If he got that reputation, he'd look even worse compared to his brother. Put felt a bit angry hearing his mom's words, especially being compared to his brother again. So he took his anger out on Pi, questioning why she came back early and if she didn't trust him. Pi obviously knew he was just mad because he was embarrassed, but she still faked being hurt, explaining that hiding her return was just to give everyone a surprise. However, when the father-in-law asked why her belly wasn't showing yet, even though Put didn't want to lie, he just brushed it off to save face in front of his brother. At the mention of his brother's name, Put immediately lost it, ran into the bathroom and trashed everything to vent. He couldn't stand being one step behind his brother. In the room, Pi was chatting with her assistant. She knew Put was raging, but she didn't care at all. Her voice had a hint of coldness mixed with calculation. Since she went on her trip, he's had too much free time and forgot his place. Now, it was time for her to put a little pressure on him. After dealing with the family drama, Pi bought some baby stuff to give her archenemy May a greeting gift. At the contract signing ceremony, Pi attended in a wheelchair. As soon as she arrived, she gave the gift and congratulated her good sister on the upcoming baby. Sure enough, as soon as she said that, the reporters went wild, asking May if she was pregnant before the wedding, catching her off guard. Pi faked surprise and apologized to May, saying she didn't know it wasn't public yet. Then she smiled and handed over the gift. Due to public pressure, May had to awkwardly accept it. Seeing she'd made her point, Pi pulled back and left the scene. Unexpectedly, just as she got to the garage, May chased her down and blocked her way. The man got a top star but still wasn't satisfied. After getting married, he was still the same old scumbag. While Pi was filming abroad, he hooked up with a D-list model and went out partying. But when the novelty wore off, he lost interest and turned his sights to Pi's innocent sister, Pam. With just a little attention, he could easily win her heart. On this side, Pi still had no idea. After returning home, she was focused on winning back her reputation and didn't suspect a thing about why her sister didn't pick her up at the airport. On the other hand, since Pam was taken advantage of at her weakest, she's fallen into deep self-blame. She was supposed to watch her brother-in-law for her sister, but she ended up falling into his love trap instead. Meanwhile, Put remembered Pam and felt she was very different from other calculating girls. He knew she wasn't scheming and was even easier to trick, so he wanted to reconnect with her. But Pam didn't want to make the same mistake again, so she purposely avoided him, until he showed up in front of her and blocked her path. Pam told him to forget what happened between them. She didn't want to be the villain who hurts her sister. A mistake like that would absolutely never happen again. Then she quickly left. But Put wouldn't let his prey go. He chased her out of the office. Right as they were struggling, they heard Pi's voice and they both froze. Then Put quickly acted, pretending Pam had tripped and he just helped her up. Pi completely trusted her sister, so she didn't think twice about it. But Pam was so guilty she didn't dare stay long. After saying hi, she quickly ran away. Once she was alone, she finally burst into tears, thinking about how her sister trusted her to watch Put and clean up all the random girls around him. Now she had become that lowlife herself. Her heart ached with shame. Hearing her assistant ask what was wrong, Pam quickly pulled herself together and just said work was too hard and she wanted to leave the father-in-law's company. At the same time, Pi brought news that the product had hit the US market. The father-in-law was very happy with her and told his son to take good care of Pi. She thought she was finally in the father-in-law's good graces, but fate had other plans. Right then, his brother's phone rang, and it turned out his wife was pregnant. This news made the couple faking the pregnancy panic a bit. Pi angrily went to the garage. Pam planned to tell her sister she was quitting, but Pi flat out refused. Since the brother's wife was pregnant, the father-in-law's focus shifted immediately. Put also acted cold because she couldn't get pregnant right away. Now, Pam absolutely could not quit. She had to watch Put until Pi successfully got pregnant. Seeing Pi so determined, the assistant advised Pam to stay at the company to keep an eye on Put. Pam had no choice but to follow her sister's orders and secretly stalk him. But her clumsy ways were spotted by him instantly. However, to lure Pam, he pretended not to know and loudly faked a call to meet another girl, then drove off. Sure enough, innocent Pam took the bait and quickly followed him. To her surprise, as soon as she reached the hotel door, he dragged her inside. You really can't trust a man's words. Yet the girl fell for it over and over again. That afternoon, Put knew his wife sent her sister to spy on him again. Not knowing how to get close, he used a fake date with another girl to lure Pam. Once she reached the door, he pulled her into the room. Meanwhile, after Pi found out her sister-in-law was pregnant, she went to the doctor for medical intervention to keep the father-in-law's protection. But the doctor said since she just had surgery, it would take at least 6 months before she could get pregnant. The doctor's words were like a cold bucket of water over her. But Pi knew her husband couldn't stand being lonely. She decided that no matter how risky, she would take Put to the hospital for procedures to get pregnant quickly. Even if she couldn't keep the baby in the end, her body could recover in the meantime, which was better than him finding someone else to get pregnant. At the same time at the hotel, Pam was pulled into the room by Put. She wanted to leave, but he blocked her, forcing her to face him and telling her to stop running away. Pam tried to stay rational, saying she didn't want to be involved with her sister's husband anymore. And she knew Pi truly loved him. Put just smirked, his voice full of sarcasm. He thought Pam was lying to herself because they both knew the marriage was never about pure love, but mostly for benefit. He flatly asked if he weren't rich. With no money or cars, would Pi still have chosen to marry him? Pam was hit where it hurt and didn't know how to respond for a second. Seizing the moment, Put kept pushing, assuming that if he had no value to anyone, would Pam still be willing to stay with him? When he saw her hesitate, he moved closer, touched her cheek, and used a gentle but calculating voice to confess that even though he's a playboy who changes women like clothes, Pam was different. He believed she was the only one who, even if he had nothing, could still see his value and wouldn't easily leave. Hearing those sweet and seductive words, Pam's defenses started to crumble. She started to believe she really was special to him. And then she let her guard down, letting herself slip deeper into this wrong relationship. In another development, Bo tried to contact Put many times but received no reply. Her mother suspected he might have someone new, but Bo acted calm, firmly claiming it was just because Pi was back in the country and keeping a tight leash on him. However, her mother immediately rejected that theory, saying that lately Pi was only hanging around the hospital for physical therapy for her injured leg, and wouldn't have time to follow Put closely. Plus, even when Pi was abroad and video calling every day to supervise him, Put still found a way to see Bo as usual. Those words woke Bo up from her daydream. Bo, of course, wasn't going to let anyone steal her benefits. Knowing that Pi's new movie had 2 female leads, she decided she had to grab one role to get a foot in the door and then find a chance for revenge. So, she went to the director she once had dating rumors with, wanting him to give her a role. Unexpectedly, he politely refused. Seeing that he had no intention of helping, she didn't say another word and just quietly took out her phone. When the director saw the photo album on the screen, his face immediately changed. Inside were private photos of the two of them, enough to make it impossible for him to deny anything. Bo casually used her mother as a blackmail card, coldly warning that if these photos were made public, the public would definitely not let him go. She emphasized that she was still a minor back then, so this matter would become extremely serious. If he didn't want the reputation he built for years and his current family to be destroyed in an instant, his only path was to help her achieve her goal. The director broke out in a cold sweat. He didn't expect such a sweet and harmless-looking girl to be so calculating. Finally, for his own career and face, he had to grit his teeth and compromise. The man married a famous star, but after marriage he was still the same old scumbag, cheating everywhere. Not only did he go out to have fun with young models many times, but to find a new sensation, he even reached out to his wife's sister. A few sweet words tricked the naive Pam into betraying her own sister. Fearing that Pi would discover the relationship, Pam hesitantly suggested they stop contacting each other for a while. However, Put acted very calm and reassured her to stay easy. He claimed that Pi trusted Pam absolutely, which is why she gave her the task of spying. As long as the two of them kept their stories straight, Pi would never suspect a thing. After saying that, he leaned down and kissed Pam lightly on the cheek as a way of comforting her. Sure enough, as soon as he got home, Put heard Pi ask where he had just been. He immediately pretended to be annoyed, responding snappily that if Pam had already reported, why ask again? Did Pi expect to hear a different answer? Not wanting the atmosphere to get tense, Pi quickly changed the subject to having kids. She said she had talked to the doctor about the fastest way to have a baby, which was through medical intervention. Those words accidentally sparked a calculation in Put's mind. To surpass his brother in front of their parents, finding another way wasn't impossible. The next day, the two of them went to the hospital together. When he heard the doctor say Pi still needed more time to recover before she could get pregnant, Put immediately became serious, coldly saying that if that method didn't work, they would have to think of another way. No matter what, he wouldn't accept being second to his brother even in the matter of having children. On the car ride back, Pi and her assistant quietly analyzed Put's words. The assistant couldn't help but worry because that attitude showed he had started to lose patience, and might even have the intention of finding someone else to have the baby for her. While they were thinking, another trouble hit. The director of the new movie called to announce that the other female lead was Bo. The whole team was furious when they found out. Although they suspected Bo used a dirty relationship to get the role, and the two sides didn't like each other, the pregnancy was the most important thing right now, so they didn't have the energy to deal with her. Everyone told Pi not to start a conflict and not to let her goddess image collapse. On the opening day, Pi was a top star after all, so as soon as she arrived, she became the center of attention. To steal the spotlight, Bo ran up with a fake smile, saying she was a fan of Pi and had loved her movies since she was a kid, implying that Pi was old. But Pi wasn't a pushover and immediately used Bo's less than stellar role in the movie to fire back, praising the director for picking someone who fit the role so well. Just like that, they went back and forth and no one backed down. As a result, neither gained an advantage. During the poster shoot, the two sides weren't peaceful either, constantly competing secretly to see who would stand in the center, just like a war without smoke. While Pi was busy fighting for her position until her face turned red. She had no idea that elsewhere, her sister was having a great time, living sweet days with her Put, as if they were the real married couple, and the atmosphere was very happy. That scheming young model, to grab attention, started faking an injury during the shoot again. As soon as Pi touched Bo's hand, she screamed in pain. While everyone was confused, Bo's mother rushed up, playing the victim and complaining that even while acting, one shouldn't use such force. Her daughter was still young, and if she did anything wrong, she hoped Pi would be easy on her. The assistant angrily wanted to talk back, but Pi stopped her. Then, she surprisingly took the initiative to admit fault, saying she was too deep in character and sincerely apologized to them. Her sincere attitude immediately attracted the reporters to snap photos like crazy. Bo and her mother didn't expect things to turn out like this, and before they could react, Pi signaled her assistant. The assistant immediately understood, saying that even though Pi is a senior, she already apologized, so she wondered if the two of them were satisfied yet, and then bowed in apology. Bo's mother looked upset, knowing that if she pushed this further, she would be criticized as a newbie who was being difficult, so she had to give a fake smile and keep filming. Bo failed and didn't dare pull any more tricks. As for Pi, she just wanted peace but was almost framed. So while pulling Bo in for a photo, she secretly pinched Bo's back while smiling and warned her that she was too green to try and set her up. In a movie, a character might endure, but in real life, she wasn't that nice. Pi could sit firmly on the throne of showbiz for a reason. After the photo shoot ended, the assistant couldn't hide her frustration, complaining to Pi that those two acted like white lotuses on the very first day, purposely looking for trouble, which was really annoying. She hoped that after this, they would soon give up the fantasy of stealing everything from Pi. But contrary to that wish, those involved became even more stubborn. Bo flatly told her mother that she must beat Pi and take everything belonging to her. Hearing that, Bo's mother couldn't help but throw a bucket of cold water on her, warning that she was only afraid that in the end, her daughter wouldn't get anything and would lose both her face and reputation. She mentioned that Bo couldn't even contact Put, saying that if he wasn't stolen by Pi, then sooner or later another woman would take him, leaving her with nothing. Bo didn't flinch. She laughed coldly and replied that if Put really had someone else, the first person to go crazy wouldn't be her, but his legal wife Pi. She wasn't wrong. Right now, all of Put's attention was on Pam. To hide the relationship at the company, he publicly criticized her work, scolding her without mercy, making colleagues believe that the two of them hated each other. However, behind everyone's back, he completely changed his cold attitude at the office and was always hanging around Pam. He was a real two-faced guy. At home, the star Pi happily went into the kitchen to cook for her husband, but all she got back was his cold attitude. He wouldn't even taste a bite. Not until Pi angrily called her husband back did the guy reluctantly take one bite, fake a compliment, and then toss the utensils down as if he had finished a chore and left. Pi was a bit confused by her husband's sudden change, only thinking he was sulking because she couldn't get pregnant yet. She had no idea that outside, Put was smiling with another woman, and that person was her own sister. Whenever Pam felt her conscience pricking her for lying to her sister, Put would say sweet words, telling her not to think too much. Just feeling the happy moments together was enough. He easily brushed away all of Pam's worries and started his happy life, enjoying her attentive care. On the other hand, back at home, shopping bags were tossed all over the floor with no place to step, but Pi didn't see a problem with it, only focusing on her own business. The two sisters' lifestyles were completely opposite, and this comparison made him hate Pi more and more, spending more time with Pam. Hatred for someone cannot be hidden. Even when sleeping, he didn't want much contact with Pi. Over time, Pi realized something was wrong. She decided to go to the hospital to check her recovery. If it was good, she would perform the procedure as soon as possible. The next day, after finding out Pi still couldn't get pregnant yet, Put suddenly suggested that Pam be a surrogate. Although she refused because she didn't want to do anything else wrong to her sister, Put was determined. He said this was helping Pi. If the two of them never had a child, the marriage would really have problems and he would find a good time to talk to Pi. Right after that, seeing Pi coming, he quickly hung up. He intended to talk about this, but looking into his wife's eyes, he finally couldn't speak up. Instead, he talked in circles, saying if they didn't have a child soon, they'd have to think of another way so the family wouldn't suspect. Although Pi didn't say anything on the outside, in her heart, she increasingly felt that Put was up to something fishy. So in the evening, after making sure he was sound asleep, she quietly got up, took his phone, ran to the bathroom, and started secretly checking his contacts and messages. She had no idea that Put had opened his eyes in bed, knowing his phone was taken. He wasn't panicked at all because with Pam acting as a double agent, he had long been prepared and had deleted their entire chat history. Sure enough, Pi flipped through the whole phone but didn't find anything unusual, so she had to quietly put the phone back. Hearing Pi's sigh, Put finally gave a sly smile. The wife felt her husband's attitude lately was very cold, making it hard not to suspect he was keeping a mistress, so she took advantage of him being fast asleep to check his phone. To her surprise, he was already on guard, and neither the calls nor the messages were suspicious. But this not only failed to put out the fire of suspicion in Pi's heart, but instead made her even more certain that her naturally unfaithful husband definitely had a guilty conscience. Very quickly, Pi shifted her target to Bo, who was working on the movie with her. When no one was around, Pi asked her assistant to take advantage of the time she and Bo were acting together to secretly check Bo's phone, mainly to confirm if there were any messages or calls with Put, and how long that relationship had been going on. Faced with the assistant's questioning look, Pi explained that although she checked her husband's phone yesterday and didn't find anything unusual, it was very likely he had wiped all traces before coming home. Pi thought that if a shady relationship really existed, then Bo, who had openly flirted with Put, was the most likely person. Seeing the assistant was still hesitant, she kept convincing her, saying her husband emphasized finding a way to have a baby rather than waiting for her body to fully recover, which really made her fear he would find someone else to be a surrogate. Saying this, Pi's eyes gradually became fierce. She thought that if she discovered the person was really Bo, she would absolutely not let her off easy. Very soon it was time for work. While the assistant was looking for a way to see the other woman's phone, Bo's mother happened to be looking for a power bank. The assistant pretended to be eager to help her find an outlet. Seeing the mother turn away without any suspicion, she and Pi exchanged looks. Then, while pretending to plug it in, she secretly tried to open Bo's phone. But even after entering the password several times, she didn't succeed. This time, Bo followed Pi's gaze and discovered the assistant's sneaky behavior. Knowing they couldn't get past the password, she pretended not to see anything. During the break, Bo told her mother about this, guessing that Put must have done something to make Pi suspicious. But since she couldn't get a hold of him lately, trouble definitely wouldn't find her. Her mother scolded her for being dumb, saying if she couldn't reach him, she was just letting the guy take advantage of her for free. Surprisingly, Bo told her mother to relax. She wouldn't let anyone take advantage of her like that. Then, she deleted Put's number from her phone and even removed the password lock. Her mother didn't understand this move. She worried that if the password was gone now, and if Pi found a chance to check the phone, it would be even more troublesome. However, Bo proactively explained that she actually wanted the other woman to see it. She told her mother to take the phone to charge and find a chance to leave, as she had wiped the entire chat history. Bo wanted to see how Pi would react after finding out she was totally clean. In the afternoon, Bo's mother did what her daughter said and put the phone back at the charging spot. Then she purposely asked Pi's assistant to watch her things so she could go to the bathroom. Sure enough, as soon as she left, the assistant took the opportunity to dig through the phone. Then she reported back to Pi that Bo was clean, and reminded her that while records could have been deleted, Bo had been filming with them all the time lately and wouldn't have time to meet her husband. Pi also realized that Bo's personal time was indeed too limited. It seemed the person hanging around with her husband might be someone else. The wife suspected her husband, but checking the suspicious target's phone didn't turn up any clues. Just as Pi was at a dead end, Bo, who once had a thing with Put, decided to send some private photos to Pi. Seeing her mother's confused look, Bo explained that since she couldn't contact that man, she wouldn't let him get away with it for nothing. The fact that Pi just checked her phone would make it hard for Pi to keep suspecting her in the short term. Bo thought that if Pi put all her energy into investigating who that person was, she wouldn't have any focus left for the movie. On the other hand, Bo could use this time to focus on her own work. Even if she couldn't steal the man, she could still win the lead role that Pi valued. After hearing her daughter's analysis, Bo's mother looked impressed, praised her for being smart, and sat back to wait and see how the next scene would play out. In the office, Pi got the photos and flew into a rage, discussing a plan with her whole team. Pam saw those photos and was extremely nervous, immediately asking her sister if she knew who the woman in the photos was. When she heard Pi say she hadn't identified her yet, she breathed a small sigh of relief. However, the background in the photos was more than familiar to Pam, so she went to Put to confront him. Pam pointed out that the house in the photos was this exact place, then bluntly asked if he had ever brought another woman here besides her. Faced with clear evidence, Put didn't deny it, admitting he had done that before, but since being with Pam, he hadn't. Seeing Put downplaying it, Pam expressed her stance. She said that although she didn't have the right to ask him to stop his Playboy ways, she didn't want to see Pi keep getting hurt. If Put continued messing around outside, she would be forced to proactively confess their relationship to Pi, and let him take the consequences. Seeing that Pam didn't look like she was joking, he was afraid she would really expose everything. After some thought, he realized this was Bo's scheme. He reassured Pam he wouldn't let Pi suspect her, and that he had a way to deal with that calculating woman. In the evening, Put was already waiting in the bathroom. Hearing Pi's footsteps as she returned, he purposely called Bo and then loudly set a time and place to meet. Sure enough, Pi heard everything outside, her hands slowly clenching together. The next day in the garage, Pi and her assistant secretly followed Put's car to see who had the guts to steal her husband. Arriving at a private apartment building, the answer was quickly revealed. Bo happily went to the meeting spot, having no idea she had fallen into Put's trap. Seeing her throw herself into her husband's arms and act intimately before they went upstairs together, Pi quickly snapped pictures, her eyes turning fierce. At the same time, in the room, Bo intended to have a heart-to-heart with Put, but he kept stalling as if he were waiting for something. Not until there was a knock at the door did he say the management announced they were checking the water pipes. Using the excuse of taking a shower, he asked her to open the door for him. Seeing Bo nod without hesitation, he watched her back and smirked. Knowing all the main characters were present and a good show was about to start, the young model, looking for trouble, anonymously sent private photos of the star's husband to her. She originally planned to take advantage of Pi being busy and distracted to shine on the film set and steal the female lead role. Who knew this action would anger Put? To keep Pi from discovering the relationship between him and Pam, he set a trap to lure Bo out, then waited for his wife to arrive and deal with her. While he conveniently got rid of the burden named Bo very quickly, the sound of apologies rang out in the living room. Bo wanted Pi's forgiveness, but she was clearly too naive. Pi gave her a slap across the face, a crisp smack echoing through the room. Then, while wiping her hand, she forced Bo to slap herself so she would remember what karma felt like, and signaled her assistant to hold up the phone and record it. Unexpectedly, Bo flatly refused because she knew Put was still in the room. She hurriedly called him out to help her, but her calculation was wrong. Put walked over, only leaving Pi with a sentence saying she could handle it however she wanted, then strode away. This moment, with no lifeline left, Bo's face looked even worse. Pi continued to rub salt into her wound, coldly belittling her, saying Bo shouldn't think she was important because she was nothing more than a toy in someone else's hands. Pi warned that if she didn't want this incident to be splashed across the newspapers, Bo had to slap herself and promise never to seduce someone else's husband again. Seeing Bo still hesitating, Pi pretended to signal her assistant to call the reporters to leak the news. Realizing Pi wasn't making empty threats, Bo started to get scared and finally had to grit her teeth and follow the demand. The entire process was recorded on video. Pi kept forcing her to hurt herself more. making Bo's face look worse and worse, until blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Only then did Pi agree to stop. Then, Pi gave Bo two choices. Either this video would be given to reporters, or Bo had to leave the film crew herself. Clutching her swollen cheek, Bo panicked and asked where she could go if she left the crew. Pi coldly replied that it wasn't her problem and declared that starting tomorrow, she didn't want to see Bo appear in front of her again. Seeing the opponent didn't dare to resist, Pi walked out of the elevator with her assistant. However, relying on a woman's intuition, she still felt something was off. Pi thought Put definitely didn't just have this one wildflower, so she ordered her assistant to pull the surveillance footage from the apartment to see if they could catch anyone else. Right after that, she drove alone to her in-laws' house. At the same time, Put returned home from the apartment, waited for a while and didn't see Pi, so he called to check on her. Unexpectedly, Pi said that after today's events, she realized love never existed. She said she was on her way to see his parents, while blaming Put for secretly buying an apartment to keep a mistress, and declared she would tell the truth that they were never actually pregnant. Hearing that, Put immediately panicked and tried to stop her, saying if she did that, neither of them would have a good ending. But Pi coldly replied that only then would he learn a proper lesson and understand the consequences of lying to her. Looking at the phone that had hung up, Put realized everything was completely out of control. He hurriedly grabbed his jacket and rushed home like the wind. The man married a famous star but wasn't satisfied, and even hooked up with his wife's sister. He originally planned to use Pi to get rid of Bo while he sat back and benefited. Who knew Pi was smarter than he thought? Not only did she have her assistant check the apartment surveillance for traces of another woman, but she also went straight to his parents' house to expose the lie about the pregnancy. Seeing his plan broken, Put feared that if Pi really told the truth, his director position at the company would definitely be gone. Thinking of this, he hurriedly ran home. Meanwhile, the assistant returned after checking the camera. Ignoring the manager's questions, her eyes were glued to Pam sitting nearby. After sitting down, she recounted that Pi suspected Put had another woman and asked her to check the surveillance footage. Pam's heart involuntarily pounded, but she tried to stay calm. When the manager asked if she found anything, if it was someone they knew, and received a yes, along with the assistant's gaze turning toward her again, she understood that everything was over. The manager's eyes went wide, unable to believe what she just heard, and hurriedly asked Pam if she really stole her own sister's husband. However, all she received was a helpless apology. The last bit of hope in her heart vanished with that. Unable to hold back her anger, the manager loudly questioned Pam, asking how she could do something so cruel. She reminded her how much Pi trusted Pam to send her into the company as her eyes and ears, yet Pam repaid that trust in this way. The barrage of blame made it impossible for Pam to hold it in anymore. She burst into tears, admitting she was wrong and constantly begging the two of them not to tell Pi. However, the manager didn't calm down, scolding Pam for being so foolish. She said everyone knew how sensitive Pi was. Pi had long suspected her husband had a shady relationship, just didn't expect that woman to be her own biological sister. Those words were like another blow to Pam. She could only constantly apologize to them. After all, they had been good sisters for many years. The assistant finally softened, telling Pam that the most important thing now was to proactively end this relationship before Pi found out. Otherwise, even a god couldn't help her. In another development, Pi was dealing with internal issues. She told Put that his parents had gone to a party and weren't home, but she would still call to tell them the truth about the fake pregnancy. Hearing this, Put could no longer stay calm, threw away all his pride, and hurriedly knelt in front of Pi, regretting that during his fun times he didn't care about her feelings, and he truly knew he was wrong for the hurt he caused. Seeing her still acting cold, saying that beyond the pain, the bigger thing was the collapse of trust. And if it happened once, it would happen twice. Put humbled himself even more, promising Pi there would never be a next time. And the hurt today was the biggest mistake of his life. Then he hugged his wife's hand tightly, hoping for forgiveness. Realizing her goal was achieved, Pi didn't really want to blow things up to the point of alerting her in-laws. So, she gave an ultimatum, warning that if she discovered Put had another woman in the future, she would definitely not be as soft-hearted as today. Put knew with Pi's personality, these weren't empty words. But the most important thing right now was to put out her anger. Otherwise, if it reached his father's ears, the consequences would be even more tragic. He didn't dare to have any more opinions, pretended to be obedient and thanked his wife, thinking he had escaped a disaster, unaware that his affair with Pam had been exposed, and even bigger troubles were waiting behind. Meanwhile, Pi's sister was secretly seeing Put. But paper can't wrap fire. The matter was quickly discovered by Pi's team. Although everyone was very angry at Pam's immoral action, since they were sisters, they told her the only way to save the situation was to quickly end contact with Put before Pi found out. To avoid long nights leading to nightmares, Pam decided to immediately resign from Pi's father-in-law's company and go abroad for a while to hide. The next day when Pi asked why she quit, Pam explained she wanted to study in England, had applied a long time ago, and was only now accepted. The assistant also hurriedly advised Pi to agree, saying the lesson the other day was enough to scare Put, so he definitely wouldn't dare to flirt around anymore, and Pam didn't need to act as a spy anymore. Pi found it reasonable, so she didn't insist, only telling Pam to send the university information so she could check it herself to ensure Pam wouldn't have to suffer. Hearing her sister's caring words, Pam's eyes gradually turned red, feeling even more guilty for her betrayal. Then she cried and rushed into her sister's arms. Pi affectionately patted Pam's head. The assistant watching this scene also felt a bit of heartache, hoping the sisters' bond could stay this good forever. At the company, Put was extremely shocked to hear Pam quit, not understanding what game she was playing. He decided he had to find her to get to the bottom of it. He rushed down to the garage, ignoring his mother on the phone urging Pi to get an ultrasound, only giving a few vague answers before driving to Pam's house. Too focused, he didn't notice that in the distance, Bo and her mother saw everything. It turned out that after being set up by Put, causing her to lose all face in front of Pi and having to agree to withdraw from the entertainment industry, leading to the cancellation of all contracts, the mother and daughter naturally wouldn't let the culprit off. They suspected Put suddenly lost interest in her because he definitely had someone new. The two of them secretly followed him to a new apartment. Seeing Pam appear, both couldn't stay calm anymore, wondering why Pi's sister was here. They hurriedly turned on their phones to record. Put intended to pull Pam inside the house to talk clearly, but she showed a decisive attitude, demanding he never come here to find her again, considering the relationship between the two completely over. Hearing that, Put got even angrier. He coldly said if she wanted to talk right here, then don't be afraid of losing face, then loudly questioned why Pam quit, and why he wasn't even allowed to step into his own wife's room. This sentence made the two eavesdroppers look shocked. Pam was also a bit scared, telling him not to talk nonsense. Seeing it was working, Put continued to threaten that if she refused to talk, he would say even more outrageous things. Then, ignoring Pam's resistance, he dragged her away. Bo and her mother hid on the side watching the whole thing, sniffing out such a big scoop. Their expressions turned from shock to joy. Now, fixing the opponent would be as easy as flipping a hand. The two of them immediately turned around to find Pi. A good show was about to be performed. The wife gritted her teeth while chopping vegetables, clearly treating the carrot on the cutting board like her husband, wishing she could chop him into 1,000 pieces. It turns out an hour ago Bo, whom she had previously dealt with for daring to mess with her husband, showed up right at her door. Pi looked at Bo with contempt, coldly asking if she still dared to show her face here, and if she wasn't afraid that Pi would hand the video of her slapping herself over to the reporters. Bo not only didn't panic but even laughed, casually telling Pi to watch a video first. Bo's mother also gave a meaningful smile, purposely saying that Pi shouldn't be too shocked later. Pi was skeptical, opening the video with a probing look. Unexpectedly, it showed the scene of Put and Pam struggling with each other. In that instant, Pi immediately reached out to grab the phone, but Bo was a step faster and pulled the device back. Bo gloated as she watched Pi's stunned face, then said that out of respect for Pi giving her a chance before, she would now give Pi two choices. Either she posts this video for everyone to see, or Pi helps her return to the entertainment industry, and in exchange, she will delete the video. Saying this, Bo even mocked that if she hadn't told the truth, she feared Pi would still be fooled by her own husband and biological sister like an idiot. Pi's chaotic thoughts were pulled back to reality by Put's voice. Ignoring the pain rising in her heart, she quietly asked about what he had said before. If she couldn't get pregnant, what exactly was the other method he mentioned? When she heard Put admit that the method was asking Pam to be a surrogate, Pi's heart couldn't help but tremble, and her hand gripped the knife tighter. She asked why it absolutely had to be her sister. Put couldn't see the expression on his wife's face and could only answer cautiously that he thought they needed to find someone reliable enough, and since Pam was Pi's sister, she was naturally the most suitable choice. Pi heard every word of her husband's explanation like knives piercing straight into her heart. She tried to suppress her emotions, using the calmest attitude possible to say that he should give her some time to think. Put didn't hide it anymore either, telling Pi to give an answer soon. His sister-in-law was already pregnant, and he didn't want this matter to affect his promotion at the company. After saying that, he turned and left without saying goodbye. At this moment, Pi couldn't hold it back anymore. She burst into tears, covering her mouth with her hand to try not to make a sound. She realized that this so-called marriage never had any affection to begin with. Elsewhere, Pam was at home packing her luggage, preparing for her upcoming study abroad. Seeing Put's tie fall down, she involuntarily remembered every little memory of being with him. However, a knock on the door pulled her back to reality. Without thinking much, she tossed the tie aside and went to open the door. When she saw her sister appear, she couldn't help but feel a bit surprised, asking why she had come here. The answer she received was that the film crew was off today, so she came to help her pack her luggage, saying that Pi intended to step inside. Seeing this, Pam hurriedly stopped her, explaining that she was almost done packing and the room was dusty, which wasn't good for her health. But this didn't make Pi change her mind. On the contrary, she replied that she was very strong inside, and she could endure things even dirtier than dust. After saying that, she brushed Pam's hand away and walked in. The first thing that caught Pi's eye was Put's tie. She immediately recognized it as her husband's item, and didn't understand why it was here. Without waiting for Pam to explain, Pi threw the tie at her, uncontrollable anger and suspicion rising in her heart. Pam understood that the wrongful relationship between her and her brother-in-law could no longer be hidden. She panicked and collapsed to her knees in front of her sister, constantly apologizing. But that action only made Pi more furious. She grabbed Pam's hair tightly, confirming that the video Bo gave her was completely true. Right after that, Pi pulled Pam up with force and gave her a slap across the face, causing Pam to fall to the ground. In her agitation, Pi constantly questioned how Pam could treat her like that. She kept asking herself how much she had trusted her sister, only to receive such cold betrayal in return. Anger and pain made Pi lose control, scolding while venting all her frustration on Pam. Just then, Put arrived for their date and witnessed the whole scene. He hurriedly rushed over to pull Pam out of Pi's grip. The assistant also quickly appeared and held Pi back, thinking the situation was under control. But when Pi saw her husband hugging Pam tightly with a worried look, she completely broke down. Jealousy and despair made Pi rush forward again, kicking Pam hard. The assistant tried to stop her but was pushed away. In front of everyone, Pi screamed in pain, unable to accept that the person betraying her was her own biological sister. Pam looked at her sister's devastated state, pushed Put away, burst into tears, and constantly apologized. She was willing to take the beating because she understood that physical pain couldn't compare to the hurt in Pi's heart. Pam knelt on the ground, ceaselessly begging for forgiveness. When Pi completely ignored her, Pam struggled to get up and hugged her sister's legs tightly, crying miserably. But until she fainted from the pain, Pi didn't look down at her sister even once. At the hospital, during the short moment of silence waiting outside the emergency room, the news the doctor brought caused everyone to crumble. Pam was pregnant with Put's child. No matter how strong Pi was, she couldn't stand firm before that truth. Pi left the hospital in a daze, telling the assistant to take care of Pam, and then quietly walked away. In contrast, Put acted extremely excited, immediately breaking the news to his mother that Pam was pregnant and the family was about to have a grandson. When Pam woke up, he happily hugged her, believing this child would help him escape Pi's control and be with the person he loved. However, Put underestimated Pi. Although heavily struck and crying miserably at home, when Pi saw her trophies and the bright aura of her past, her eyes gradually became determined. If love was gone, her career was absolutely not allowed to collapse. She vowed to reclaim her proud and brilliant status. Knowing well that Put would sooner or later propose divorce, Pi understood that if she let him make the first move, her image in the public eye would crumble. Therefore, she decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, Pi went to meet her father-in-law, confessed about the fake pregnancy, and said that her husband had someone else and didn't need her anymore. Even though she still loved him, she was ready to let go. She also announced her intention not to renew her contract with the company because she was busy with personal projects. The father-in-law wouldn't accept letting a valuable figure like Pi leave. When Put came home and proposed divorce to take care of Pam, he firmly opposed it, even using power and benefits as conditions to force his son to keep this marriage. Faced with benefits, Put hesitated and finally chose silence. In the evening, Put called Pam, announcing that their relationship was over. He suggested sending her abroad to live and letting Pi raise the child. This moment, Pam finally saw Put's true colors and regretted her betrayal. After hanging up, Pi walked over to Put. Although she heard him asking to start over, her heart had gone cold long ago. She understood that he didn't love her, but she also no longer put love first. She smiled, held his hand, and acted forgiving. The two hugged, temporarily covering up the deep cracks inside. 1 month later, Pi once again stood on the podium of glory, winning the title of Best Lead Actress after 7 years. Under the stage lights, amidst the thunderous applause, only she clearly understood the price paid for that glory. A marriage of convenience, the betrayal of her sister, and the hidden bitterness. All were buried behind a perfect smile. She thanked those who had hurt her, even though she herself wasn't sure if everything she had attained was truly what she wanted. Life is like a play, and in that play no one is truly the winner. But at least, under the stage lights, Pi was still the proud and brilliant princess she had always been. The movie ends here. Don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next exciting movies.